Hey there, gamers. DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about Xbox because the head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, just did an incredibly in-depth interview with Bloomberg where he talked about the fact that there will no longer be Xbox exclusives. It sounds like everything from Indiana Jones to Gears of War to Halo, everything is coming to the PS5. He talked about a possible upcoming handheld. He talked about a lot of stuff, and I did notice that a lot of people are happy with this news, but I have seen some rage. I have seen some Xbox people saying, "We've been betrayed. The death of Xbox is here." But let's discuss and let's take a look at the interview. I hope you're having a great day, and if you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. So I want to take a look at a couple bullet points and a couple blurbs to start with, but here's the main crux of what I feel like a lot of people are focusing on. Phil Spencer will not rule out any Xbox exclusive making the jump to PlayStation. Now, the reason I find this to be such a fascinating quote is because at this point it does seem like I don't think Phil is fully in control of Xbox. I mean, that makes sense. He isn't Mr. Xbox. He is an Xbox employee, the biggest Xbox employee, but still an employee nonetheless. He is still working for Microsoft. And there has been some thoughts about the fact that it does seem like the sales of the recent Xbox to PS5 stuff, the Project Latitude projects, as they're called, the games that are being brought, like Sea of Thieves, freaking Hi-Fi Rush, those games are ended up coming to PS5 and selling gangbusters, which I think people at the top of Microsoft are starting to say, okay, we need a lot more of this. Now, even in these comments, people are saying, okay, so PlayStation is the best place to play. Bro looks washed. Gears of War is going to be nice on PlayStation. Less exclusivity, the better for gamers. Pretty much everybody is like, okay, this is it. This is the end of Xbox. Halo 7 coming to PS5 in 2026. Now, I do think a lot of this comes down to these numbers that came out just a couple days ago. In fact, this actually got released yesterday. I was going to talk about this yesterday, but obviously we had a bunch of other gaming news to cover. But the first sales digits are coming out for Black Ops 6. And from everything that's being said, they're pretty strong. It sounds like Black Ops 6 is actually getting crazy sales in general, but additionally, even the people that are playing it on Game Pass, it sounds like Microsoft is starting to realize that if your options are, okay, someone will pay $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever, to subscribe to Game Pass, or they'll buy it upfront for $70 and still be buying the microtransactions, it's probably worth it to eternally support the PlayStation. 75% of sales, and this is not speculation, this is from the raw digits, 75% of total sales were on PlayStation. And also, the sales have gone up on PlayStation. So it sold 24% more this year on PS5 than it did last year on PS5, which is absolutely bonkers to think about. But let me take a look at the rest of these bullet points here. There's some stuff in here that's extremely fascinating, and I want to take a look at the end of the interview. I have it pulled up. So what happened was Phil Spencer was doing some other talks in the area, and he stopped into Bloomberg to kind of break down the goods and the bads. I do want to quickly say, for some reason, I've seen a bunch of comments about how Phil Spencer looks. I think he's looking fine. I mean, I'm not sure how old this dude is, but it seems like he's slimmed down a bit, but I don't know. He seems fine. Also, even if he is feeling sick, he's still showing up and doing an interview. Okay. I respect the eternal grind set. Okay. Now, two things that really stuck out at me that I think are kind of weird is the talks about an Xbox handheld, I think, are good, but he also talks about the fact that they're currently still looking for more acquisitions, but instead of just buying studios that make a bunch of money, they're trying to find ones that add geographic diversity. So essentially what he's saying is, I do think in the worldwide mindset, a lot of people are still thinking of Xbox as a American company, right? Because that's where Microsoft's at. And let's face it, what originally kind of exploded the popularity of Xbox in the first place was their Western-focused devs. Stuff like getting, obviously, early Bethesda titles, Morrowind on the original Xbox, Halo, all the shooters and stuff like that. So It always seemed like they were trying to branch out a bit, though, right? The amount of RPGs and stuff that have been coming to the early generations of Xbox were a bit of a trickle, but now we have seen Xbox trying to make better deals with Square Enix. They're trying to make, they're trying to get other audiences involved. So it sounds like they're tempted to expand into China. So they're talking about maybe buying some Chinese studios. Now, the reason this is just a bit strange to me is because, honestly, the last major outside the typical scope acquisition that we saw from them was buying Tango Gameworks. In fact, even in the replies here, I think people are making Tango jokes. Because, yeah, Tango Gameworks is a Japanese company that made Hi-Fi Rush, that made Evil Within, that won a lot of awards, and then they got scrapped. So I guess being a good studio and geographically diverse was not enough. Now, the other part of this that really struck my mind was the talks about an Xbox Portable. Now, people have been kicking around this for a bit. It seems like it's a kind of open secret. It sounds like a bunch of developers and stuff are currently hard at work on this Xbox handheld. And to me, this sounds incredibly fascinating. I was actually talking about this a bit over on Blue Sky, where I think the idea of an Xbox handheld is incredibly fascinating because I am obsessed with my Steam Deck. In fact, usually I always have it on my desk because the Steam Deck is not just a tiny PC. You can mod the Steam Deck. I've got a bunch of emulators and ROMs and stuff like that. I actually set it up so my Steam Deck can play my PlayStation 5 like a PlayStation Portal. And even as a streaming device, it's cool to be able to play a handheld version of PS5 games. Like, yeah, the UI isn't the best because it's much more crunched down and stuff, but while playing like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and stuff on my handheld, I started to think, man, it would be cool to have a version of this for Xbox where I could actually install Xbox games and play them natively. But I did see some pushback where people are like, okay, you can already put Game Pass onto a Steam Deck. Why would you want a separate device? And I guess my rebuttal would be the fact that I really love everything handheld. I just think handhelds are cool. As a kid who grew up with a Game Boy in my pocket, I think it's really cool to be able to just whip out, big AAA games and play them, even if they do have crappier graphics or frame rate or whatever. But I do think the other part of it is that there's something about having a native handheld. I think I'm curious to see what Xbox's interpretation of a handheld would be. I mean, I'm curious to see the battery life, how good the power output would be. I mean, I'm super curious if they're going to try and do the streaming route because Xbox Game Cloud is not that dang bad, but I hope it installs natively. The Xbox handheld, I do kind of think, and maybe you guys can say I'm going a bridge too far, I do think this is a signal that we're not going to be getting the next Xbox console for a bit. I'm not going to name names, but I have seen certain Xbox YouTubers kind of pissed about the existence of the PS5 Pro, saying the PS5 Pro is pushing the market into a bad direction. And their weird rebuttal is that Xbox is not doing a mid-gen refresh because their plan is to start the next generation sooner. I've seen a lot of Xbox fanboys, and I don't know where they're getting this. Maybe they have some insider info I don't know about, but I've seen a lot of them saying that the next Xbox console will be out in like 2026, trying to beat out the release date of the PlayStation 6, which rumors are the PlayStation 6 is probably coming in 2028, 2030, somewhere in there. But I think the idea of an Xbox handheld, in my mind, I think it does kind of counteract that. I think if they're making an Xbox handheld, I don't think the next Xbox is coming out in 2026. I think it's showing that if there is another Xbox, which even that I'm pretty dang doubtful of, I think the next Xbox and the next Xbox handheld, they're way off in the distance. Again, I think this generation is going to be an incredibly long one. Now, I want to go back to this here. So some things that people are talking about is stuff like this. Microsoft announced Indiana Jones for PS5. That was very intentional. They got all the answers they needed from the Xbox community in just a few days. Y'all went from being mad to, well, as long as it's on Game Pass, they no longer need to drip feed because there is no red line. And they know y'all be mad for a few days and then get over it. I've seen a lot of people sort of just discussing the idea of the lack of exclusivity, where what if the Xbox just becomes a Game Pass platform? At one point, there were rumors about the idea that maybe they'd put Game Pass on other systems. If they do that, I do think that is an interesting experiment, right? If I could actually pay like a Xbox Game Pass fee and play all the Xbox games that came to Nintendo Switch on the service, that does sound interesting. Or putting it on PS5, where by getting the Game Pass app and paying the subscription fee, obviously you could play Gears of War, Indiana Jones, or Minecraft, or Bethesda games and stuff like that. I don't really believe that rumor anymore now, simply because it does seem like games are selling so crazy good at full price on the PlayStation. I just get an idea that Microsoft isn't want to just throw away that many billions of dollars to get more engagement metrics. Now, here's another tweet I saw people talking about, which is more positive, which is the idea of the Xbox Handheld. This guy here, if the Xbox Handheld can play all my digital games natively, that would be the dream. Now, I am on this person's side completely. I think the idea of getting a chance to not just play games, but play them natively, I like streaming the PlayStation 5 to my Steam Deck. It definitely works good. Actually, it works a lot better than you would even think. I keep my PS5 hardwired, so it is cool that I can just stream. Even when I go to the gym, I can actually play PlayStation 5 games streamed. That's pretty neat. But installing natively is always the superior choice, even if you are having to deal with less graphics, or even if the internal storage isn't the best, so you can only have a couple games installed at once. I still think that is way better and way more cool. Now, I wanted to actually take a look at the interview here. I've got the interview pulled up because Phil Spencer says a lot of interesting stuff, but one of the things he talks about is momentum. It sounds like, if anything, they're very pleased about the success of Xbox games selling on Nintendo Switch, selling on PlayStation 5. It sounds like this stuff is making them not only a lot of money, but it sounds like it's keeping people incredibly happy and maybe even in a weird way strengthening the Xbox brand. I mean, I'm sure some Xbox people in the comments are going to be real mad when I say this, but think about the fact that putting games on PlayStation 5, this is probably the best that Xbox games have sold in years. Years and years and years. Their games are actually finally selling for full price, millions of copies of it, on the PlayStation. I'm sure Microsoft is very pleased to finally be selling games directly instead of just engagement numbers. But I wanted to actually take a look at this part at the very, very end. I think Phil Spencer's a smart guy. This, to me, is something I feel like we all need to etch in our brains, okay? I feel pretty good about where the industry is going. To reach new players, we need to be creative and adaptive of new model businesses, new devices, new ways of access. We're not going to grow the market with $1,000 consoles. Now, the reason I think this is interesting is, yes, I've talked bad about the PlayStation 5 Pro. Yes, I did end up getting a PlayStation 5 Pro, but my thing is that I think he is 1,000,000,000% correct, because I am afraid of console prices going up. And I do think that as stuff gets more expensive, I am worried about how it would implode the industry. I mean, everything in gaming is about having the biggest player pool possible. You can't sell, obviously Spider-Man 2 sold 10 million copies or whatever, 11 million copies, but a game cost $300 million to make. If you're going to keep your games high budget and successful, like it seems Sony and Microsoft are very obsessed with, you got to have a big enough audience, a big enough player pool to even buy it and keep engaged. The cheaper the PlayStation can get, the cheaper the Xbox can get, the cheaper the Nintendo Switch can get, the more I think it's going to be good for the industry. And I think it's kind of bold of Xbox, of Phil Spencer, to just directly come out and say, hey, we're trying to make affordable games that look the best possible. I mean, props to him. But these have just been some off-the-cuff thoughts. I just woke up. I have not had my Red Bull, but kind of getting a chance to extrapolate my ideas about this has given me that good early energy boost. But how are you guys doing? Are you having a great day? Do me a favor, tell me what you think about this in the comments down below. Are you excited for an Xbox handheld, or are you happy with your Steam Deck? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Oh man, can you believe I literally opened my eyes like 20 seconds ago? I'm accidentally using my real voice. Sometimes I talk a bit different in videos. Why am I doing that voice? That's not my video voice either. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.